and you can unmute yourself.
Okay. Hey, everybody, I'm Dr. Velma Bagby, and I'm excited to share with you my book release that's happening this week. There are two books. There's the book, the novel, The Catch No One Wants, and then there's the Catch workbook or homework basket or study guide, if you want to call it that, that adds additional questions and information that's included based on what the character does towards the end of the book. I'm excited to be here with all of you, and I'm looking forward to answering your questions and offering whatever insight I can to the stories that's involving the fish in this book.
Thank you so much. We have to top left, Queenie Clem. Would you tell them who you are? I know who you are.
Hi, everyone. I'm Queenie Clem, the literary ambassador, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Ro.
Hi, my name's Ro Brady. I'm the author of historical fiction, and I am grateful to be here also.
Thank you. Takia.
Hi, my name is Takia Green. I'm an avid reader, and I'm also grateful to be here.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Velma, for being here tonight. We are going to ask you some questions about this book. I thought that this was a very good book. You said that branched off a conversation that we had before when I interviewed you, and it is good to see that you went right on into what you wanted to do. I wanted to hear a male aspect of what it looks like for dating, and you had a wonderful idea to have a father who guides his daughter into the dating scene. Here's our disclaimer. We are not talking about, we're talking about Christian women, and we wanted to hone in on Christian women because I personally, and maybe you that are on the panel, wanted to know how we date, because the world don't see how we date. We don't date like the world. And so your book give us an idea of what we should be doing or what we should look at as a wholesome Christian dating. Again, I go to Dr. Velma, and you give us the backdrop so they'll know what they're listening to. And you're muted, Dr. Velma.
Sorry, I was clicking on the wrong button. In the book, we talk a lot about dating with intent. And what that means is you always date with marriage in mind, which means that anybody you're introduced to, that's the whole goal. You're trying to determine if this person is a potential mate for you. When you don't date with a marriage goal in mind, you tend to just accept anything and everything. And so it's important for us to have a goal first. A purpose. And so if your purpose in dating is to marry, then you should keep that in mind. It changes your strategy and how you select the men that you date. It changes what you do on a date. It changes the type of questions you're going to be asking. Very similar to a person in business. They're looking to have a joint venture with another business. They're going to do a lot of research and background checks and validate whether or not this person or this business has the financial status that it claims it has. There's a lot of research that goes into trying to determine if that business is going to be the right fit for you. It is unfortunate that we don't do enough of that when we're looking for our mate and determining if this is the person that we are destined to be with. Sometimes you can find a great guy or a great person, but doesn't necessarily mean that that person is your mate. He may be a great guy for somebody else, but not you. And so you have to keep in mind that this is a prayerful journey, that you're praying throughout the process, and you keeping in mind that you're looking for your God man, your man of God that will take the helm as Jesus says they should, in the role that the man of God should have.
Yes. I'm going to go ahead and start first because I wanted to open up with what your book opens up. And it really floored me because first I thought about the way she was dating. It really pained me the way she was dating. And as I read further, I find out that she's a PK kid, a pastor's kid. And so I know that the world said that's a lot of pressure because they are the worst. I guess it's because of the pressure that they must be super perfect and dot the I's and the T's, and they cannot fail. So that's one of the things that we have another guest that's coming in, and I'll let her introduce herself. But that's one of the things we look at is having them dating. How should they date? They always make a mess. I won't say as a whole, general. They always make a mess of things. And so when I seen it open up with Veronica and Mike, right? Michael, Veronica and Michael. And that was a very, very, I don't want to give it all away, but I just give since you put it in there, just a small spoiler, is though that she had this date and she had in her mind that this is her husband. This is the perfect one out of 5 guys that she met, that this is another perfect guy. And what she went through in that restaurant and the things that happened to her, I felt so hurt for her. I was like, and I told you this a little earlier that, okay, maybe she had sex with him and boom, and he left. And then you told me behind the scene, no, there was no sex involved. So with that opening up, I'm just gonna throw that out there. What does it look like with dating as a saint? How should we date? How should we date? What does that look like?
Well,
Is there a stable type of dating for a Christian?
well, yeah, there is. And before I get to that, I want to hear, I know that everybody on this team have read that chapter. What I'd like to hear what their response to that chapter is, and then I'll add that part directly after their comments.
Yes, Queenie.
Looking at my notes. Um, this was potential husband number 5. Like you said, that's kind of weird. That she was every man that she was with, she was thinking this is gonna be my husband. And I would like for Dr. Velma to also answer 2 questions that I had in that chapter. Is it says something about husband-like characteristics? What are those? And who is your wise counsel? And I really enjoyed Odessa, her older cousin. She had a lot of positive he helped her along the way, I'll say that.
Bro.
Trying to get back off of mute. I kept thinking a couple of things. I kept thinking about, well, my husband was an associate minister until he got really sick. And then he kind of transitioned into doing a lot of fundraising for our church. And I think oftentimes we put so much pressure on kids whose parents are in any type of ministry that they have to be these angels. So I thought for Vanessa, you know, her situation where she was dating all these guys, I kind of wonder, you know, because it was almost like this rumor that got back to her father about what had happened. I kind of wondered, like, what was she doing other than just dating that caused her father to have such a worry, even though she was dating a lot at that time? What exactly was she doing? You know, dating has many connotations. So that was my question, was like, okay, what kind of rumors are getting back? So I think it depends on what your definition of dating is, because you can casually date and go to dinner. That could be a date. And all you do is go to dinner. You could go to the movies and that could be a date. So that was my big question.
Takia.
First chapter. My question was, I understood that she was a PK. I just didn't understand why she was putting so much pressure on herself to be married and to know somebody for 2 weeks, basically talking on the phone, and you're like, okay, this could be my husband. It was a lot of red flags from her that she needed to work on herself in the first chapter that I got while I was reading. So that's what I took away from the first chapter. It was a lot she had to learn about herself. I'm like, okay, within 2 years, it's the fifth guy that you saying is your husband, and y'all only talked on the phone, or chatted for 2 weeks, and you considering him your husband already. So it was just a lot packed in from on her standpoint. So I think she need to like work on herself.
Our other guest, if she would come and say her name, don't want to mess that name up. Is it Shanadea?
Shandia?
While we wait on her,
Yeah, let me get to some of these points.
yeah,
You
get on
guys
those
are
points.
good.
Yeah.
Going back to what Rose said, yes, there's different kinds of dating. There's social dating. As teenagers, I don't believe teenagers should be dating with intent as a teen. They're not emotionally ready. Nowhere near where we were as teenagers back in the 70s. We were prepared differently. We were ready with whatever we had planned for ourselves directly after high school, going into college. We were just prepared differently. Teenagers are not prepared emotionally well right now. You can date your parents, you can date a brother, it's just going out and doing something socially. So we're not talking about social dating. We're talking about dating with a particular goal. And that's where we have failed miserably, because these were things that used to be taught to us. They're either taught to us in the church. We got some of this teaching in school. It's just not taught anymore. So we get these horror stories now of people who have been in relationships and they end up being harmed miserably, or in some cases killed. And I remember watching a recent incident while I was writing this book. I said, see, that breaks my heart, because we're not being prepared properly. The wise counsel Queenie mentioned was just a group of people or one person, because of the fact that it was the father's job in the beginning to make sure this guy was vetted properly, make sure he was the right person for you. A man can see other things in a man that sometimes we cannot see, so he can pick up on red flags. Well, a lot of fathers don't know how to do that anymore. They're not equipped to do that job. And so a wise counsel are those people that you value, like in the book, it's Odessa, her cousin, her father. And so even her father, when he takes her on the fishing trip, he talks about it more. Select who you want on this wise counsel. In one story, I think it was the story of the salmon in chapter 5, the wise counsel were all friends, but there were some friends that were married, some friends that were single, but they were wise enough to identify the fact that this guy was showing some flags they felt their friend shouldn't continue dealing with anymore. And through that wise counsel, they saved her from a situation they found out later about him. And so that's what's important, is to replace what used to be the father's job. But now so many fathers don't know how to do that. So many fathers are not in the home. So it's a backup plan, because even recently, I found out about a story here in California where the young lady was in an abusive, toxic relationship, and the family convinced her to get out of it, and she did. But the guy asked her to meet with him one more time, and she didn't tell anybody that she was going. And this is another big red flag today. Dating in secret is horrible, because then you have no protection at all. And so she went and met with him one more time. And the next time they saw her, that girl was dead in the ditch. We heard the other story about the young lady that the officers had accosted, let her go and let the guy go. He ended up killing the girl and then killing himself later. So the wise counsel is even more important now for your own protection. There's no such thing as dating in secret. Who came up with that? I'm grown, people. You can be grown, but grown and dead too. So it's important for your own protection that you surround yourself with a wise counsel. That can be anybody, people that you trust that will impart some wisdom in your life when it's time. Now, I don't necessarily support every single person in your life to be your wise counsel, because you want somebody that's seasoned, somebody that knows what they're doing, hopefully somebody that's been there, done that, and are married, that can help you along the way. So that was the idea from that. And then somebody, the dating, the husband-like characteristics, I don't want to jump ahead in the book, but he spells that out later on, what husband likes, because what he's dealing with is she's dealing with conditions. She's looking at what the man looks like physically. She's looking at his assertiveness because she wants someone aggressive and assertive. And so she's looking at what her father describes as conditions, and conditions change. I've been married 48 years. I wasn't that Coke, I'm not that Coke bottle anymore. And my husband had a big fro, and that's all gone. Conditions change. If you look at conditions, then you're basing your attraction to that person that's worthless. Those characteristics that matter, Grayson talks about a little later on, get the ones that have built up some spiritual muscle, not bulk, but spiritual muscles, who know how to pray you through a problem, who know how to help you when you don't feel good. So he kind of goes through that a little later, and I don't want to jump ahead because you guys haven't gotten there yet. So that's kind of my responses to everybody. So I'll let you guys respond now.
Okay, before we respond, I'm gonna read the caller's what she said. She said her camera's not working, but this is what she said. She said, I'm a pastor married to a pastor, and I understand a bit about the unrealistic pressure that are put on clergy and PK's pastors' kids. Some forget clergy are real people too. So I like that. And you can keep responding that way. So she's having a problem with the camera, but she can respond in there, and I'll look every now and then over there. But I want you, before you go any further, Dr. Velma, to tell us those type of fish. Is it 5 fish, 3 fish? Tell us how many fish, and tell us the character of that fish.
Okay, I'm going to tell you the fish, but let me respond to that. I'm married to a pastor too. And I was raised by a mother who was very involved in a lot of church. She was over a lot of auxiliaries, just same kind of pressure. Even though she wasn't a pastor, she was over a lot of very key auxiliaries. And so it's still pressure to live up to what you see as the examples around in your family. So whether a PK or a leader of some sort, or someone over any kind of auxiliary, there's still pressure no matter what. And I think that's why that idea came. It wasn't just being a PK, it's being within the family of anyone who has some kind of position in the church. You're going to be judged as their children. And so you make mistakes like the next person. I don't know why they expect us to walk on water right away. We might get there, but we're going to have to learn how to swim for a minute first and then walk on water later. So I just wanted to respond to that. And so in terms of the fish, there are 5. The 4 fish that Grayson shares with his daughter on their fishing trip speaks to the kind of men that she's dated. And that's the problem. She was rushing through men, and she was rushing through the men, and she was not doing a good job at picking good ones. So the first fish is the catfish. The catfish loves eating garbage, loves hanging out in garbage, does not apologize what his life is like. That is where he lives. That is what he does. That's it. You cannot change the catfish. Everyone that goes fishing for a catfish understands that if it's hot, the catfish will bury itself in the mud and will sit there eating whatever floats by. Normally it's dead stuff, old stuff, garbage. The catfish will not chase after anything concerning food. It waits for it to come to them. So if that gives you an idea of that type of man, he's not going after the chase, even though that's a term we use for men, that they like to chase. Not all of them. Some of them are just like that catfish, will sit around and wait for somebody to come to them. And usually when they come to them, they already know that's a red flag. That's something that they cannot wait to capture, because who wants a catfish? Who wants anything that's hanging out in garbage? The second one is the salmon. The salmon does not like to get caught. Based on my conversations with my brother, who is the expert fisherman in the book, he told me that the salmon, a lot of fishermen hate them because they will break your line trying to run away. So for women to want to go after a salmon, he's going to have multiples around him because he just doesn't want to get caught. He might treat you like you're his favorite, but you best believe He's got other favorites too. And then there's the sturgeon who likes to nibble. Fishermen hate the sturgeon because they can sit there all day thinking that they have a bait on the line, and the sturgeon has slowly nibbled it off. It's sneaky and it nibbles very lightly to the point where the fisherman doesn't even know they have no bait at all, and they've sat there for hours. The sturgeon likes to nibble, and in our story, the sturgeon just happens to be a minister, a reverend, who gets sent everywhere to represent the church, and he nibbles everywhere he goes. The pufferfish is one of those fish that fishermen do not like to catch at all. It's beautiful. It's one of those fish that's described with a human-like face, human-like eyes, just very captivating, but make it mad, agitated. It puffs up 3 times its size, and it has these poisonous splinters that come out, ready to kill whoever crosses the line. And so that's the pufferfish. And the last one is the goldfish. And I don't want to be a spoiler, but the goldfish is the final story that the father tells her. And she has not dated a goldfish, but he introduces the idea of the goldfish to his daughter as the possibility of a mate for her. So those are the stories.
Wow, what a great thing. Wendy said something, then also I've seen your hand, Queenie, but Wendy said, with the divorce rate at a high in the church, you hear me? In the church, what will you say to the couple in pre-wedding counseling? That's from the Facebook. So there's a question there.
Part of what Grayson talks to his daughter about, he mentions the fact that there's a tool that he gives her in her basket after all of this is done. And he tells her to go through this workbook, and it's a tool that I use in all of my pre-marriage counseling because it'll help you to flush out those problems you haven't had a chance to deal with. And one of the things that Grayson tells his daughter, that after the end of all of this, he said, now put in the work, start uncovering and releasing all the stuff that you have gathered and from your past experiences, because God cannot present a man to you if your heart is already occupied with all these old experiences. So why would a man come into your life? And my grandmother had a saying, she said, God will not give you a broken glass to cut your lip, which means that sometimes you can be the broken glass, that you haven't had taken the time to heal that stuff that you picked up along the way because of poor experiences. And so what you want to do, he tells his daughter to lay aside every weight, and the scripture says, lay aside every weight and the sin. Notice that he separated, Paul separated weight and sin, which tells us sometimes we're carrying things around that's not sin, but they're weights. You can't run in a race if you're weighted down. And so it's the same as preparing yourself to get married. And I think from my experience in premarital counseling, and even in those times when I had to help a couple in a rough patch, I gave them the same book. And the book is mentioned at the end of the book as well. It's a workbook called Love is a Choice, because what happens is we deal with unresolved issues, going all the way back to childhood and bringing it forward, relationships that we've had, and we learn to love the wrong way. We learn to accept a different love that's not necessarily healthy. So it helps you to kind of clean up and lay aside those weights. And that's one of the books that her father, Veronica's father, gave her. He said, go and start laying aside all this stuff. Before you even talk to me anymore about a potential husband, work on yourself first. And that's my answer to Wendy. I think, going back to what I said in the beginning, we're just no longer offering this level of teaching anymore. And it used to be done in the church as well as in school. We're just not doing it. And so unfortunately, what we end up with is trying to help a couple work through problems that could have been resolved had they been prepared better. And that was the whole idea of this book. It's just to put it out there. This is what it looks like when you're just out there trying to grab anything that you can grab. But you want to catch the right one, but you need the tools to do that. So that's my response to that.
That's an awesome response. Queenie, you had your hand up for a little bit.
Dr. Velma said something about being in a secret relationship or being secretive. That's a red flag also. If you don't want, why are you being secretive? I mean, you're holding something back, so that's a red flag. I just popped up in my head. That's all I had to say. I'm sorry.
It also reminded me of a conversation you and I had in one particular scene where the guy walks into the room and he's got a cross on his tie. Now he's dressed nice and he looks good and he looks well too. Queenie wanted to know, she fell in love and she thinks it's a sign from God because he has a cross on his tie. I said, that's the first thing that would be a red flag for me. If you got to do all of that, then what are you hiding behind that cross? So don't let jewelry fool you.
Don't let him saying the word of God out of his mouth fool you either. Don't let him do it. Dr. Velma, I have something else for you. And then you guys, I know that you have certain chapters you want to talk about and different things. And so I'm just going to go ahead and give you these things. What got me, and we talked about a little bit earlier, is that some women, whether they're Christian or not, have this goal that I am 30 years old. And then they pass they want to be married by 30. And then they pass that, now they're 32. And so now they have this longing desire to be married because they didn't quite meet their goal. And in the story, I see that she didn't prepare for anything. Just want a man, five men that she said was her husband. And I don't know what she based this off of, but we later know in the story that I'm not going to give away, that what she was comparing herself to. And you know, when you read in the story who she compared herself to, which was great thing to compare yourself to. You know what I'm saying? But it was something that she found on her own that amazes her. How did they achieve just spot on to have this relationship and it worked for them? So tell us about that when you have a woman, and we did a disclaimer earlier, we're only talking about the church house, folks. And what is that push that she wants if she's not married by this and that, especially in the church house?
She talks about it in the chapter where she has accomplished her goal to go to college. She's graduated. She's got a successful career going. It's like you have these boxes and you want to check them off. And we mentioned that she's a millennial, so she's goal-oriented and focused. And so although she was able to apply her methods to college, check, to getting a career, check, but her method didn't work with dating. It just didn't work. And there's another example in the story where you get two business people together who decide that they're both savvy in the boardroom, they're both savvy in business, and they decide to approach their relationship in the same way. They were used to closing deals quickly. And once they see that everything aligns up, then what's the point? Why wait? And so they ended up in the marriage. But he ended up being the pufferfish. He ended up, she got into a life, and then he started really unveiling who he really was. And she was stuck trying to figure out how to get out of it. And so I think it's important for us to be very careful and making sure that we really understand this process, because we have just adopted so many bad habits, like what she did. She knew her father taught this class, Date with Intent. She knew the principles that her father taught. She went through the classes, but she thought her method was better. She thought she could get married quicker if she used her own method and approached this in her own way. And that's what a lot of people think. Anybody can walk down the aisle, anybody. Getting married is easy, but it takes work way before you march down that aisle. And you have to begin to work on yourself first and make sure you approach this appropriately, so that when you do find that one, that work that you put in, it's work all the time in a marriage. We never stop working. We're trying to make sure we continue to build and continue to maintain a happy home, and making sure each other is, things are well at home. That never stops. But you have to know what it takes to do that, and make sure you have the right potential partner that will help you do that, that will work with you to do that together. So getting married is easy.
That's true.
But do you want the easy way, or do you want to take the approach where you can just make sure you worked on yourself and then you understand what you should be looking for, and then take it from that approach? And you shouldn't be in a hurry at all. There's no timeline for that. And then making sure that you're praying your way through so God can help you understand that.
That is true. Either of the people on the panel, what brought out to you, whether it's whatever chapter it is, you can just raise your hand. I'll see you, and just let me know what chapters you want to talk about without giving the story away. And I do understand our phone caller. She can text in, type in, and I'll look at that once you type something in. So any of you ladies on the panel, what popped out to you? What topic you want to talk about that was for you?
In chapter 1, Dr. Velma says, the Christian women see the church as a place to shop for a husband. The church is full of unsaved sinners and broken believers.
And why are you looking over there? What makes you think that's the only place to find a husband? I said, God can bless you to pass someone at the gas station, but are you ready for that? Yeah. That really is the question. Are you ready to meet him? Are you ready for God to present him? But that's so true. I've met the women who were shopping around, and some of our stories, look at the story, chapter 5, Savion the salmon. The girl had her girlfriends helping her maneuver in the offering march so she can get close to the guy while in the offering march, so he can at least see her and they can speak to each other. Then after church, they would run and try to block the elevator going down so that he gets on there and she gets on there at the same shopping, and find out at the end that there was something interesting about him that I cannot say. You have to read the story. I can tell you this, that I added it in the, I'm not sure if I put it in the workbook. One of the stories, turns out the reason he had difficulties is because he was gay. His mother told him to get married and have some grandchildren. And so if she had not gotten out of that situation, she would have been with a gay man, and he would have done that because that's what his mother wanted him to do. He made no commitment to change who he was. And I read where there's 4 million women married to a gay man these days.
I was going to go, my daughter and I was talking about that today. We were talking, especially her. I love listening to my daughter. She has a lot of wisdom. We were talking about that today, how, we have a lot of gays in church, and how a gay man, he can hide under the cloth. He's truly can hide. He can hide there, and you think you have a man that is just love the Lord, and he does. But
you know why?
battling with his sexuality. He's truly battling.
We're looking at the robe. We're not really scrutinizing him, because if you scrutinize him carefully, you'll pick it up. And then you're looking at his status. You're looking at his assignment. And rather than looking at him as a man and determining if he's really a good opportunity for you to date or pursue, or him to pursue you. But that's the problem. We think that everything walking and talking in the church is a perfect opportunity for you, and it's not. And that's why one of the stories I use that cross, because I've seen women do it. Go Google for Cocoa Pops because a man has a cross on his side. Are you kidding me?
Yes.
And then get you and beat you to death.
Yes.
With the cross.
With the cross.
With the cross.
And that's why I wanted to have this powerful conversation with you, because it's so true. We need to open our eyes. And so another conversation that my daughter and I was having was that the church is a big building that all walks of people in life come. I remember when I was growing up back in the day, and thank the Lord, I'll be 60 next month. But here's the thing, when we were growing up, I thought everybody in this church was saved. Surely they were saved, because people that was not saved was afraid to go into church. They really were truly afraid to go into church if you wasn't not truly for God. It's like, I wait till I get myself together. Those tender times is like, I can't go into church because I want to get myself together. But now I remember my pastor saying, I forgot the percentage, but there is a higher percentage of non-believers in the church than there are believers.
That's right. And here's the other thing. One of the stories I talk about, Reverend Stevie Sturgeon, was based on someone I knew growing up that I witnessed. It was based on an example of something I witnessed as I was growing up in the church. And I was looking like, didn't that minister date such and such just a minute ago? Didn't he just date blah, blah, blah? And just for me as a teenager, that was a red flag to me. Like, who is he going to date next? And so that Reverend Stevie Sturgeon, the one who nibbles everywhere he goes, it came from that kind of character that I saw in the church.
So we try not to have church gigolos. We try not to do that. And Ro, go ahead.
But I was also going to say, I think the role of the church with our new generation has changed, and neighborhoods have changed. So I think these support systems, thinking about when you and I were a lot younger, the role of the church was more of a family support, and also neighborhoods were different. So I really think this trickle down system has changed the way the information that young women get about dating. I think about when I was a young girl and going to church with my family. My father went to church, my mother went to church. There were women in the church that not only supported our family, but supported me as a young girl, would talk to me about things that my parents felt safe with. In my neighborhood, if I did something wrong, I would hear about it from Miss So-and-so before I even got home. These types of support systems are no longer in existence for our younger generation. A lot of that support system was where we found out if the information was, generated by those individuals. It was pretty much the same. In our neighborhood where you had women who were women of faith. If you brought home somebody and they happened to be visiting your parents, they were like, oh, I don't think so and so is good for such and such. I don't think that's going to work out. You heard it a lot younger than what you're getting now because you had more of a support system than young girls do now.
Well, that's where the wise counsel comes from, Rose. That's exactly where that came from. Because somebody asked me, why did I become a certified Christian dating and relationship coach? I said, as a ordained minister, I was ministering to singles and couples all the time. I said, but just to add that to it, it helped me to promote the fact that that's what I'm available to do. But the wise counsel, and they asked me about coaching. I said, you have to understand that coaching was done within the family. My wisdom came from that old aunt I had that was 85 years old. If I had any problems in my marriage or anything going, because I remember going to her and telling her, I don't know, we're having a hard time. She said, well, baby, look at all the years you didn't put into that man. And then she said, and you gonna turn around and give it to somebody else? I said, oh, no, nobody else is getting the work I put in. I'm staying right there. So I'm just saying that they were our coaches. The senior people in our families were the coaches. Those were the people we had to go to. And so all this is saying in terms of the wise counsel is going back to what Ro just said, is building that system of support that you have again and that you really need. I don't know where we got this thing that I don't want people all in my business. Well, it was like that in the family. Like Rose said, that I don't think that person is good for you. They walked in wisdom because they've been there, done that, and understand it already. And so that's what that wise counsel can do. And I mentioned that to another person who said, why did you become a coach? That was why, because we used to have that in the family. If it wasn't in the church, and I don't want anybody to think that this is something about the church. It's not. Just get that out of your thoughts. This is not about bashing what the church is not doing. No. It wasn't about that. It really is about trying to fill a need. And most of my books coming out is based on that, trying to fill a need that used to be filled that we no longer have. And hopefully it will start the conversation again and help somebody along the way.
That's so true. We got someone in the audience, Pamela Nance Johnson. She said the church mothers is hard to find these days. You don't see them church mothers. I remember when I was growing up, we at the church, you had them short dress on. They was already at the doorstep with to put a white little cloth over you so you could just have your legs crossed. Whether you wanted that laptop or not, you were getting it.
Now the church mothers today trying to act like the younger folks.
Mhm. Mhm.
They don't want to move into the church mother role. They still want to be treated as young.
Mhm.
And you,
Mhm.
that's our
Yeah.
rope shaking her
Yeah.
head. So
That's-
again, as you select your wise counsel, those people you value, whose opinion you value, who will be honest and sincere, whose only goal is to help to guard your heart and your life, will help you to vet. And that's why it's somewhere in there, Grayson talks about the parade around. I brought that back up, Ellen, from the old book. And that's why you do it. That's why you parade them around these people. So they get an opportunity to see this person and determine those things that maybe you can't see because your heart is too close to him, but they may be able to pick up some of those things that you don't see.
That's so true. There's another thing on the board. It said, I also expose my children to couples that are married, that they can see other positive sides of marriage. And that is really good right there. What are we gonna, and you guys let me know, put your hand up so I can see it. But what are we gonna do? This is my question, Dr. Velma, when it comes to singles in the church. Okay, so this is me personally, and I said this before. This is Ellen, and Ellen is saying this. I know that we have singles in the church, but I don't think that it should be a lifelong quest of being single, like having all this single stuff. Now, if you don't want to get married and you don't want that, we need to clearly know that, because a lot of times you have, I don't know if it's in the book, because they went a little further than me, where we have some people in the church, they want to be matchmakers. They see this single woman come into church and they automatically assume that she wants to get married. So I think we need to stop doing that. And I think the single, really the church is designed, and it's couples, it's marriage. It's not a lifelong quest of being single. But we do know that Paul in the Bible said he was single, and he wished that you could be single if you wanted to be. You have more time for God and just things like that. But the singles, they feel slighted. There's nothing for them. Everything is geared toward married. What are we going to do with our singles? I know that's a long question. And then we do have something on the board up here.
Well, I wanted to ask, first of all, in how Grayson did talk about singles, the singles ministry in terms of the dating with intent. Did anybody get to those chapters at all? Queenie, did you have any comments about what Grayson talked about with his daughter?
No, that's spoiling it.
Okay. Well, I'm trying to answer the questions, Miss Ellen, without cracking the code in the book, because he deals with all of that. And I love the fact that he takes his time with his daughter, not judgmental, because when you get into the chapter where it all falls apart, especially after chapter 1, and she meets with her cousin Odessa, who tells her, look, you really need to talk to your dad. He's the one that's the expert on this. I've used his training and applied it to my dating life to make sure that I was dating safely. And so he goes into detail with his daughter. And I think the very first place is first to make sure that you're solid in your relationship with God. And that's what he did with her. And it's important that you understand that when you go into a marriage, there's 3 in that marriage. There's you, your husband, and then there's God. And you must have him at the forefront at the very beginning, and he remains at the forefront throughout the whole process. Because here's the thing, I have two daughters too. My oldest daughter is 44, and the youngest one is 32 now. And so one's married, one's single, still working on where God wants her to go. She has a person in mind. He has her in mind right now and waiting. Her dad has been a part of the process. I have been a part of the process. And so we try to make sure that the approach is one that it includes the family, includes my husband. And so he was able to give my daughter a male perspective about a little challenge they had a minute ago. And he told her, exactly what she needed to do because this is how a man thinks. And so it's important that singles understand all of that and making sure that they understand who they are and where they are. In the story, Grayson deals a lot with his daughter's self-esteem. He deals a lot with her self-worth, because if you dating all these guys that represent these fish that we just talked about, you've got a problem. Those are all red flags because you're not doing well with your selection process, which says that if you're willing to go down to the catfish level, then you've got some self-worth issues. Because if God values you and tells you that you're something good, the only thing that he said was very good in the garden was when he created, he said everything was very good until he looked at Adam being alone. He said, well, that's not good. And the answer to that good was the woman. And so he calls us good. And then he tells us that we're more valuable than a ruby. And I told my daughters when we had this conversation, value the ruby. I want you to understand how valuable you are. Look at the ruby. I said, people talk about the diamond, but it's the ruby that's called the king of the gemstones, not the diamond. It's the ruby. Most people who have a lot of money or in royalty, they get rubies, not diamonds. And so I explained to them that it's important, is what Grayson said to his daughter, that she knows who she is, that she knows her worth, and that no man needs to walk into your life to tell you this. You should already know that because God says that about you. And so those are things that I think used to be kind of the foundational teaching, that no man, if you got a dude that's walking into your life and he's saying, you are just fantastic, you are just beautiful, you are just valuable. If you fall for that and you don't already know that, that already is a red flag. So it's important for you to know what you're worth. So Grayson does a lot of that with his daughter in the book. He goes back to build up who she really is in God.
Yes.
We are the prize. We are the prize. The man
Hello.
should work hard for his prize.
That's right.
That's right. That's right. We got quite a few questions here, y'all, on the board
Throw
here.
them out. Look at Ro. Look at what you thinking about, Ro?
Okay, so I have questions on the Facebook and I have a question right here. Okay, so I am going to go to the side so I can see this. I'm just going to go with her chapter 1 that she talked about. She said when she was, her chapter 1, she said when she was left at dinner by date, she immediately started questioning herself. Why? What did I do? What's wrong with me? Rejection is the one thing of many I saw at play in this chapter.
Going back to her self-worth, remember? Going back to how she feels about herself. She thought it was her size because she mentions the fact that he did not, she explained to him during one of those conversations that her profile picture was not current, that she looks a little different now. So after he saw her in person, she automatically assumed, well, I guess because I'm not as small as my profile picture, that he thought I was not the right size. So she began to blame herself, not him, but herself. And that spoke to her worth, her self-worth. She didn't think highly of her own self. The guy was just being stupid. It had nothing to do with what she looked like. It was just him. Maybe he didn't feel like he could afford the place. Who knows? Because I mentioned that I put the meme in my group and it said, if this was you, and the meme says, you're at a date and the guy leaves in 15 minutes, you're wondering what happens. And so you dial 67 in his number and guess who answers? He does, which is what happens in the story. I said, what would you do? And people started writing. My niece, she said, if I got stuck with the bill, she showed a meme with her hand, long nails, knocking on his door to get her money back. But he not only left her, he left her with a bill of $165.
Yes.
You know, that place was not cheap. And you're talking about a big platter of crab, that was $165. And so that was one of the person's responses, that they would be knocking on the door getting their money back. So I'm just saying that in that very first story, she had a lot of red flags and issues way before
She
this.
did.
It was a
She
train
did.
wreck before it began, not because of him, but because of where she was.
Yes, yes, that's one thing my daughter, we always talk about. You meet people where you are. So you need to get yourself together. And then
Yeah.
also the other part of that she said is if she had guarded her heart and was spiritually healthy, what else? Let's see. I didn't see the rest of that right there. I don't know where the rest of that is, but she just stopped at okay. So I'm gonna that's what she said, but she stopped there. I don't, if she complete that. But let me tell you what's on the board right here on the Facebook. They are really going in with some things. Okay, so Pamela says, transparent moment. I had to learn to live, save, and single after divorce in my late 30s because I did not have God in my marriage in the first place. Thank
Mhm.
God for grace and wisdom over the years. So I'm older, single, but I'm good with God and not fishing, but I'm open and love the book. Good for any age.
Look, this is
And that
where
was
this is
Pamela's
usually when God shows up. Shows up. Did you hear what she just said? She's not salivating on anybody over anybody. She's not chasing anybody down. She's not in a hurry. She's just making sure that her walk with God is solid and that is satisfying, and it should be satisfying to you. That's usually when he shows up because God knows where you are now. He knows that you're ready now. She's not looking for anybody. And that's usually how God moves, that he just shows up with somebody.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying that it's important for each person to get to that place that Pamela just announced. And it doesn't matter at what stage you are in your walk, whether you've had to get out of a bad relationship, a bad marriage, whatever the circumstances are that brought you to being single. Maybe you're a widower, who knows?
Yeah.
But even then, it's about making sure your walk with God is solid so that you can hear from him. And sometimes that's when God moves. When you say to yourself, I'm happy, I'm good. And God says, well, now you're ready.
Yeah. Queenie said he was playing her from the jump. If she knew exactly, I was so mad. What type of fish, ladies, would you say Michael was? Based on the fish analogies. In chapter 1, what type of fish would y'all say he was? Based on the definitions of each fish she told us.
He was a sturgeon.
I was thinking that Queenie, Rowe, and the other two ladies.
Yeah, I would agree. I would think he was a sturgeon, but he had some catfish tendencies wrapped around there too.
Yeah, Wendy said catfish. Yes. Any more ladies? Any more questions from anybody? Dr. Velma, you did bring up stuff. And also, for those of you out there, there is 2 prizes Dr. Velma has for you. Of course, she'll have you guys will inbox me your email address. That's how that goes, right, Dr. Velma? Where you
That's
can
fine. I can communicate.
Yeah, inbox me your email address, and somebody out there is going to be winning something, and we'll talk about that in a few. Anybody have any more questions or anything in the book? Queenie, you or anyone?
Well, I have a question. I didn't know what it was, so I need to know. Chapter 4. What is farm-raised catfish?
Well, they claim that, and I wanted to do more digging about it, but they claim that they're not fed garbage. They're farm raised, which means they feed them naturally like any other fish. But a natural catfish in their natural habitat, they're eating garbage. They're down in the mud, just enjoying. So when they say farm raised, they're trying to say these are clean fish now.
That raised my eyebrows then, because if he's a catfish, isn't he going to be his own character pretty soon, no matter how you try to raise him like a farm fish, isn't he? It's kind of like having a wild tiger to be raised like one of your cats. He gonna get big and He
Well,
knows he should be in the wildlife.
the woman who married the catfish, when she was introduced to him, he told her he worked nights, but she met him at a club. After they got married, then she wanted to find out exactly what he did at night. He said, I told you in the very beginning, I work nights. That's what he did at the club. He worked nights, trying to get whatever scheme he can get his hands on. That was his job every night. And he did not promise her he would change. Matter of fact, a catfish questions why you question his life, because there's nothing wrong with his life to him. That's his life. You should be accepting of what he does and who he is. And she signed up and married the dude, and she never asked those questions. And so here she is with this man still going out to the clubs and everything, just like he was when she met him.
Queenie's hand is up.
Okay, chapter 4, Carson the catfish. I can't really talk too much, but can you explain to everybody what the 40-day rule is?
In the 40-day rule, if you ever picked up your keys, your key ring, how many of those keys do you actually use on your key ring? Raise your hand. Do you use every key on your key ring? No. And so the 40-day rule is one of those keys that God has given us. He says, I've given you the keys to the kingdom. And what happens with us is we're not using the keys. We got all these keys on the key ring, and we don't know what key goes to what lock, none of it. And so the 40-day rule in scripture, 40 stands for stands for test and trial. He does not need 2 years to figure out if you're the one for him. And I don't get this. 40 days is all he needs. Because really, if you ask the right questions, and it's discussed in the book, and the workbook gives you all the questions. If you ask the right questions in the initial date, you will have all the answers you need in terms of whether or not you're going to move forward. Because these questions are designed specifically for a serious dater, the one who's dating with intent to marry. You ask these questions, and if he's wiggling around the answer, if he can't get to an answer, if he doesn't have an answer, there's your answer. And so the 40-day rule is he has 40 days to at least express that this is moving forward, but you don't need 40. All you need is just to go through the first initial questions, and that'll tell you if you're even going to make it to the first week. And that's why it's important. 40-day rule, God says the number 40 is the number for test and trial. So let's try this out. Not 2 years, not 1 year, not 3 months, not 6 months, 40 days to at least express. And we all know, and I don't know if you've heard it, but my husband said it again today, because I was saying, what made you even want to talk to me in the 10th grade? What we weren't around each other. What made he said, I just knew when I saw you. And I said, I keep saying to women, they know the minute they meet you. They don't need 2 years. They know the minute. So if he's a salmon and he doesn't like to get caught, he's not going to commit at all. He'll try to string you along for 2 years because he's still looking, while he's got you stringing you along for 2 years because you think he's going to announce any minute now, not necessarily so. And so what you have to remember, sorry, my husband's coming in and that's my alarm. What you have to remember is 40 days is your guideline, 40-day rule. You either get your answers within those first few questions, or he has 40 days to prove to you what this is all about, or at least for you to get to know him more. You don't need more than that. And God gave us that as a rule. 40 days, test and trial. That's what the number represents.
Now, I have a question for you on that. I haven't gotten that far, but these 40-day, is that when they've already been dating, they've already had some time in dating, or is this, they just
somewhere within that 40 days, there should be some form of commitment for him to move forward with you in a very serious way. There's somewhere in there. But you're going to get some of the answers that you need from those questions. when you ask the pertinent questions. I don't understand why we don't get to the pertinent questions very early on in
Exactly.
talking to someone. Why do we
Yeah.
play around with this guy?
Mhm.
Either you're dating with intent, with a goal, with a purpose,
Yeah,
or you just enforce, this is just a social experiment for you.
yeah. I got a lot of people dating unintentionally, kicking it folks in the church.
But the key is a man knows the moment he sees you. Now, he might not
does
declare
know.
it right away, but he knows you are the one for him the moment he sees you.
That is so true. But one thing about it too that I have seen, whether in the Christian dating world or in the non-believers,
Mhm.
I've seen women who had a horrible relationship, got a pretty good man that wants to get married now, but she doesn't want to get married for whatever reason that she's hurt, and he is ready to get married. He is so ready to get married, but she want to dance around her pain and say, and wait for years.
So
And
now
so-
she's putting him in pain. And I've
Yeah.
seen a situation where that happened and the guy ended up dying.
Mm,
And so the woman lived with regret
mm.
for not really making, because again, carrying around the weight of old experiences will hurt you. It's like putting all the fruit in a bowl, and one of the fruit has one, and putting a rotten fruit next to all the good fruit. What happens to all the good fruit? Eventually it's going to get rotten too. And that's what happens to you when you're not whole and healthy. You are rotten on one side, and even if he is a good opportunity, a good potential mate, you can cause him to become rotten because you're not ready. And so putting you next to him could cause him to become rotten too. And so you have to understand that it works both ways, which is why my next book, by the way, I'm talking about the wives who tear down the house. Proverbs 14:1.
I
The
can't
wise
wait.
women build, but the foolish woman tears it down. So it works both ways. I mean, just because we're talking about fish today, there are women who can get potentially good men and
Mhm.
just tear it down because they're not ready. And these men do the same thing that women do currently. They were looking at conditions and not really looking at the person themselves.
So true. Do you guys have anything else? Because we're gonna have you here for 2 hours after a while.
I gotta go.
But no, not yet. So
Oh, not yet.
no. I want to see if they have any more questions, and then we're gonna let them know what you got there. And
Okay.
so somebody is gonna win some. Just show them those items. Show the items that someone out there is going to win. You see that?
This is
Somebody
one,
is going
and this
to
is one.
win. And that is one. So we'll let you know when we're gonna do this.
Does the ladies have any other things to say? I see you deep in
Yeah,
thought,
I want
Takia.
them to say, do you guys have anything else on screen? Queenie?
Just beware when you get to I think it's chapter 6.
Oh my goodness.
Puckerfish.
Oh my
That
goodness.
chapter just beware.
Why? Because Queenie fell for the puffer fish?
No, for certain something happens in that chapter. Just beware.
Let
That's all.
me ask you ladies, and in your lives right now, I know I'm married, Ro married. I don't know if Takia, did I mess your name up?
No, that's correct.
I don't know if you're single. I know Queenie is single. I'm only good. I want to
Shandia is married too.
send who's married?
Shandia.
Okay, she's married. So Queenie and
How you know
Takia,
I'm not married?
I don't know. I seen a ring, but I'm not looking. But what man that you could say in your last relationship, based on the fish that Dr. Velma told us about, and be honest, what fish have you been plucking on?
I
Queenie?
haven't been plucking on any fish. I've been, I'm going through a separation right now. So we've been together 25 years. So he was my first. So no, I haven't had the chance to do all the fish. So this is actually a good book. And I would like to say to the audience, once you start reading it, make sure you have a notepad because you're going to want to jot down some notes, especially if you're thrown back into the dating world, which it seems
Mm.
like in 2022 is nothing compared to the 1990s when I started. So you're gonna want some clarity and basically just like she said, well, that's why I was saying when I got into the first chapter with her name just left the character in the book. Her name just left. When she was talking, I was like, she needs some therapy because that sounded a little bit, like me. I was like, her self-worth, she needs to know herself. Cause I'm like, okay, she told him all of this. She told him that she didn't look like her profile picture. She had more weight. So I don't know why she was dreading on that. And I'm 43. So now if something happens like that in my life, I'm like, that's just God weaning them out the way. So that's what
Yeah.
I would have looked at it. I
Yeah.
wouldn't even went all far-fetched like she did. And I'm like, 2 weeks, ma'am? No, that ain't your husband. You don't even know that man yet. So right now at this point, that's where I'm at. So I haven't had the pleasure, but this book, I'm taking notes because I'm going to be reading them out later on, not nowhere this year, or maybe not next year, but I have my notes to be reading them out. So that's where I'm at.
Queenie.
Well, when you get to my chapter, you'll see the puckerfish.
The puckerfish. Wendy says she want one good spoiler.
Well, here's some spoilers. A lot of the places that I talk about in the book are here in California. Queenie meets the pufferfish, who just happens to be a multimillionaire. Flies her on the first date, flies her to LA, to one of the most expensive Chinese restaurants there. So he's just pouring out the charm. That was the one that walked in the office with the cross on his tie, and he turns out to be the pufferfish. And then, because they're business people, they like closing the deal. So they closed the deal in 3 months. They got married. Moves her up to millionaire. They call it Billionaires Row in San Francisco. At the top, there's a high heel. There's nothing but billionaires up there. It's called Billionaires Row. And a lot of our tech folks who own businesses, a lot of it, and even I think Julia Roberts just recently bought a house up there. That's where it's so. I cannot wait for you all to journey to California so I can give you the grand tour of all these places that I talk about in the book are here in California. I thought about how a lot of people write about a lot of East Coast locations and things. And I said, you know what? I'm going to introduce you guys to Cali and let you see some of the wonderful places we have here. So whenever you visit, then I will be your tour guide and help you to really see the locations that are in the book. So I just wanted to share that. And these are all some of my favorite places, not the LA one. I've never been there, but some of the other places I have gone to and we go to on special occasions. So I would love to introduce you to those locations. So that's one spoiler. The other spoiler is the majority of the characters, over 17 characters, were named after a family member or a friend who asked to be placed in the book. Their first names. Veronica is my sister. Her uncle Skip is my brother. We call him Skip. He's our expert fisher person. So you'll see those little unique touches in there that my family could not wait. And the one who opens it up is my cousin. So he said, I want my book. I said, oh, you messed up the book in the very first chapter, Mr. Michael. So I could not wait they just kept calling me and say, put my name, put my name. I said, this is really exciting.
It is.
So it's over 17 people who are either family member or friend Pastor Denise in one story. That's Pastor Denise Walker, who's a great teacher and trainer in scripture, but she's in there teaching the singles class. So you'll see more about that, Ellen, in the book, where she's trying to teach and the girl rejects what she's being taught and decides to venture on down to get the catfish. So those are kind of the spoilers. That's all I can give you right now.
Yeah, that is great, great, great. Do you guys have anything else? And we got a couple of winners out there.
We do?
Yeah.
Well, somebody posted a note in chat.
And
do
that
have one
the
question.
note that she said was she got her book, her basket. It came in
Homework
today.
basket. Oh, yay.
And it's simply awesome.
It is definitely.
So
I have one question.
Pamela
before you
said,
go with
I
the
had
news.
a summer conference in the Bay Area years ago. I will be there again knocking on your door, Doctor.
I'm here. Come on down, Kingdom Sister.
Yeah, she will be there knocking. Okay. So anything else, ladies? Queenie, you're muted, so I can't hear you.
I had a question.
You have a question?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead.
So with the wise counsel, since reading the book, if they're not, say, into the church or, doing something into the church, how do they figure out who their wise counsel is?
Well, what we used to do, it has to be somebody with scripture wisdom. You can't do it without it, because they will point you to what, oops, I'm sorry, I'm trying to leave the meeting. They will point you to what the word of God says, depending on what your challenge or your question is. And so you need somebody who's well-versed in scripture. Sometimes it's a pastor. I don't know what your relationship is with your church. Sometimes it's a member of your family. Sometimes it's another person your same age, someone who's been through what you've gone through. That's all the wise counsel. I'll be happy to be a member of your wise counsel.
I have a wise counsel.
Who's on your council, Queenie?
You, Miss Rose,
I sure
and
am.
Miss Ellen.
And
Yeah.
Rose a good wise
Oh, thank
counsel.
you.
Ellen is a good, all you got to do is ask and we there. What's his
Yeah.
name? What's his dad? What does his daddy do?
Accountability, and you have to want that.
Absolutely. You have to
that
want it.
accountability. Yeah.
Your wise counsel's goal is for you to be happy and safe.
Mm-hmm.
They're not there to make a decision for you.
No.
They're there to help you with the decision, help you vet this person to make sure, kind of like I said, kind of the role of the father, what the father used to do. And sometimes we can see red flags. The counsel can see red flags that your heart cannot see.
That's so true. Dr. Velma, this is the last thing I have, and then we'll start if y'all have anything else. One of the things that I did see in chapter 1 with Veronica, I'm thinking that she chose these guys out of her loneliness and her time clock. Would you say that's a lot of her dilemma is her time clock? And
You
her
think about the
loneliness?
personality of a millennial, they're that can-do generation. I could do it. And that's what she says. She accomplished her goal in college. She accomplished her goal in her career. Her career is going well. She's that can-do group. And sometimes that's all well and good, except you can't do this by yourself. You have to surround yourself with the support, like Rose says. And that's what the wise counsel does, is support. And so to think that she would bypass all the steps her father taught in the class and can do it on her own because she did everything else. She finished college on her own. She got her job on her own. She's building a career on her own. She thought she could do this too. And you just can't. Because somebody would have seen red flags and some of these other examples I mentioned to you earlier, had you just taken the time to expose it. Because to be honest with you, in one of those cases, I blame the girl's parents who was upset with the guy having killed her by now, but did nothing when you saw this, when they were dating in high school. She was too young to be with some kind of manipulator like that in high school. And so he had groomed her that entire time. And so it's important that a wise counsel step in to kind of help and provide that support. It's too dangerous out there right now. I cannot fathom it. I just cannot.
It's
There's
so
one,
true.
oh, I'm sorry. There's one scene where Grayson talks about the spool of fish. I'm sure you've seen it when you've gone to an aquarium. It's like a whole spool of fish and they just one turn, all of them turn. They like this. That's like the online dating. He talks about it, online dating. What happens with online dating, you have to be very careful because it's a spool of fish. And everybody in that group is not interested in getting married. They're just interested in getting something to eat, just interested in getting a bite. And so that's what you have to be careful of. And so that's what it's designed to do.
Yeah, it's hard out there in them dating streets. And Takia, I don't
Yeah.
know. I probably have to wrap you up and put you in the closet for a little bit.
Well,
Oh,
she's
yeah,
got some,
this young lady
Takia's got some
from-
unpacking to do first.
Yes, definitely.
That's where she starts. She's got to unpack.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I mean.
I would say if find somebody who will give you wise counsel so you don't end up with Jeff Rowe from what is it? Jeff Rowe from Death Row.
I was getting ready. I was thinking the same thing, death row.
No, my mom's still living. She's 79. It was a question for like the singles. So like when I started reading the book, I was like, okay, I want to get this for my daughter because this is a good book. She's 23. So for me, it was good. So it was like the question basically broad for the singles that's not out there, or the kids or the girls that's in my daughter's age group, like 23. So I was like, because I was thinking when I was reading, I was like, this would be a good book for them to read and us to discuss it. With
Absolutely.
them being in that early 20s age. So
Mm-hmm.
and she was telling me about, sometimes she keep her dates to herself, but one date she was like, I just met the guy. He took me out and he was like, he thought I was gonna go sleep with him. She was like, you must not know who my mama is. I can give you your money back and you go on your way. She said, I left him right there in the restaurant.
Well, that's what happened to Queenie in her story too, because the guy did not, after flying her to LA and flying her back, he walked her to the door and helped her to unlock the door, and she goes inside, and first thing she thought about, I thought he was going to try to stay overnight. He must be a man of God. And he wasn't.
Yeah.
So we look at these little things as clues, and they're not.
So the dating world is hard in the church and outside the church. We can't
This
be
is hard.
manipulating, can't be
Yeah.
manipulating. And just gotta stay in that word, really gotta stay in the word. I think that you can meet someone if you're in ministry together. I think that's where the dating comes from, is while you're ministering, you start liking each other. And it's a healthy way. You maybe you do outreach, maybe you do different things like that. But my question to you, Dr. Velma, is I know that there's a physical attraction, but to be safe with the Christian dating, what should they? I'm just, the best way to say this is like, in non-believers, they can hold hand, they can open mouth kiss, they can go different places, they can do things. But there are some guidelines that we need to follow as a Christian, that we cannot do those things, open mouth kiss. Maybe they can hold hand, maybe they kiss, lip kiss.
Girl.
Those type of things. And maybe somebody say that they just can't do that at all. What is the safe thing to be together? And your flesh want to show some type of example of that. And I'll tell you this really quick. When I was 17, I told this before, and I'm not ashamed to tell it. I know I had met, I was about 17, 18, 19, something like this. Some of y'all may have heard this story before, but Christian girl. I liked this guy who was not Christian. He was very fine. And we had planned, I don't know where we were going to do it at, but we had planned to have sex. I don't know where. Could have been in my own house, outside in the garden. I don't know where was this plan supposed to be. So I was very excited because I wanted to give him something because he was liking me. And so the very next day, that plan that we were going to have sex, he came over to the house. He walked in. Remind you that I said, let me remind you, I said, he's a non-believer. So he walked in, he came to me and he said, God said no, and he walked on out. He said, God said no, and he walked on out. And I'm thinking, I'm young. I didn't have any kids or anything. People do have kids as a teenager. And that really hurt me, that he came in and how dare him not be a believer and said, God said, no, I was so ready for this sexcapade, whatever you want to call it. But I think that was just to save there. So if we think about a fish there, he would probably be a goldfish in the making, I guess.
That would be the sturgeon, the nibbler.
Sturgeon.
He nibbles everybody.
So he went on, and we did not do anything. He left. He said, God said no. And
let me just say this
about that. When I think about it now, and him walking away from that, I thought that was really good. What do you have to say about my?
Yeah, I don't know what he heard in your household, but it must be God sitting there watching over you.
That's what I say. God is watching over me to tell him, like he told a blemish, you're a dead man walking.
You know, we get confused with sex and love. That's two different things. There's a difference between sex and love. If you're after love, then go after love. When I talked about the school of fish that Grayson talks about, because he tells his daughter about online dating, it's like a school of fish. They just looking to grab whatever they can grab. That's just a school of fish looking for a connection. And so you got to understand that when you're a serious dater and you're looking to date with intent, you must have you must have some kind of if you value yourself, you have to present yourself as valuable. What happens to a prize if a prize is already taken? It reminds me of Hezekiah, who was told not to share the temple treasures with anybody. And he decided to parade the enemy into the temple treasures that he was supposed to guard and protect that belonged to God. And what did the enemy do? He came back and stole all of them. It's the same as someone taking from you what is not designed to be taken from you unless he's your husband. And so we have to go back to making sure that we're carrying ourselves in a way that we're worth finding, that you are valuable, and don't devalue yourself. And that's important for you to have those kind of qualities and standards. A man will respect you, especially one who really wants a woman of God,
Yes.
will value yourself too.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not going to want to put you in a situation that will cause you to be vulnerable. And you shouldn't want to be.
That is so true.
So a person who ravages and takes treasure that doesn't belong to them is a counterfeit and is not authorized. And so therefore, you should want to try to maintain yourself during that time. And I would really question your moving ahead of God in that process. You have to be very careful with that. And we're just so loose with everything today.
Yes.
We're really loose with it. And so we confuse sex with love, and that's not love. Look, when you've been married as long as me and Ro, sometimes love is, we so tired, let's just go to bed. You got your pillow, I got my pillow. Right, Ro?
I know that's right. You know, I'm 30 years in. I know that's right.
Right, Ellen. Okay, 30 years. Ro, what did you say?
Ro have to unmute.
Unmute, Ro. I said sometimes love is just you've been married so long. Love is just, are you okay? You okay? Get your pillow, get my pillow. We're both tired tonight. Let's go on to bed.
I was thinking, is it what's Proverbs 8:22 that says when a man finds a wife, he finds a good thing?
Yes. But don't mess up your good. That's what I'm saying. Don't mess up what's good.
That's right.
Keep it good.
That's right.
Because he will cherish that.
That is so true. Even the incident I was telling you, like at 19, 18, 17, even in that thing, being a Christian young woman like that, and sometimes and trying to date someone that is not saved, that's what I'm saying. Whether they save or not, you do feel like you have to give this person something. Okay, he's with me. We're talking about the Lord. Then
who's the prize? Who's the prize if you feel like you have to give? Yeah. No, I'm the prize. I feel like you better get to work. Mm-hmm. Get to working for me. because I'm the
Mhm.
prize. But if you
Mhm.
feel like you have to give them something, you're not the prize. You're
Yeah,
treating him like he's the prize.
but that's when I mean, to really, and that's from like I say, from my experience, and I can say as a church girl, some
Yeah,
girls, I'm not saying that they don't go through it. Some girls go through that. They dating, holding hands. I've been with this guy X amount of weeks, and all I'm doing is holding his hand. I know I need to give him something to keep us together. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. But you don't
well,
need to give him something to keep you together. So that's what I'm saying. That's the reality of the real. If you're gonna date and you're gonna date and you doing things that keeps you in that window and you feel like, okay, I've been with him this long. So we have to recalculate that. That's what I'm saying. We have to recalculate
that's
how
right.
we doing this type of dating. And you looking at the world, she done holding his hand, they done got a ring, tap, tap, tap. And you like, I've been with this man and I'm giving him nothing, tap, 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 that it's gotta be, we gotta be careful.
I agree. But hey, I'm not here to preach that because I can, but I'm not here to preach that.
Amen. Listen, we got
I'm
something.
just here to present the fish.
Now, this is some things that Wendy said, and then we're going to go into that, and we want to hear it sound like final words, or we want to hear your, sound like church again, right? Okay, so Wendy said two different things. The time that Takia was talking about earlier about the man and knowing who he is and all this stuff and accountable people, Wendy said she'll help you out. She'll go find that person's social media and she'll help you out that way. That's what she said. And so then she also said there's one lady that is always teaching on the Bible. Now that she has a man in her life, she is always posting pics with them being touchy-feely. What do you have to say about that?
Nothing.
I
Nothing.
knew it. We're gonna leave that one alone. Final words, Dr. Velma. This has been great. And we're gonna get into that prize. She is laughing out there. They roasting out there. They laughing.
Y'all trying to set me up. And I'm just a simple person trying to promote my fish book. And you guys are trying to drag me into
A wise counselor.
Okay, I know Wendy now. Now I know how to watch out for Wendy. I know what Wendy's up to now. But I just want to say, this book has taken me through the ringer. It really has. So I kept telling God, I said, you have something big in mind for this. I just hope that it gets out there and is able to help other women and that it gets women thinking about taking a different approach to discovering who God has for them. I really do. And by what I have gone through, it told me that it was going to be something good for women because the enemy won't fight you if it's nothing. He'll fight you if it's something. And so the fact that that happened, I knew that that was going to take place. I didn't want to give you the kind of spoilers that will spoil your reading a chapter. So you're just going to have to get into the chapter. I know Queenie was holding back because she's read the arc already. And I'm just excited and I can't wait to get your feedback, and the book will land this week, God willing, and I'm excited.
I can't wait. Also, what would you want the readers, those who's looking, as a takeaway?
One of the things I think I said in my prayer in the opening of the book is I said, I hope that every reader that reads this book will take away a nugget. Now, if you can take away more than one nugget, then that's wonderful. But I want you to understand that Takia mentioned, and then I think the other ladies mentioned they received their workbook, the homework basket. And I included in that workbook the 60 scriptures that talk about a fool. God has never told us to marry a fool. We're not supposed to be dating fools. We're not supposed to be a fool. We're not supposed to talk to a fool, hang around a fool. I said, there must be a reason he gave us 60 scriptures about fools. So take your keys. I mentioned having keys earlier. make sure you take your keys and know how to use them. That's what God has given us, the keys to the kingdom. Know how to use your keys. And so I hope that this will help you to do that.
And it does, Dr. Velma. Thank you so much. This
Thank
has
you.
been a great book. So now to our winners. So for our first, the big box, I'll just start. Let's start with the big box.
Mm-hmm.
The big box goes to Wendy Arced.
Not Wendy. Okay.
Wendy, that big box goes to you. I want you to inbox me on my Facebook. Inbox me your email address, even though I know it. Inbox me there. And Wendy said she gave an answer for the question she asked. She said she wouldn't get no counsel from her at all.
Now you know, Takia, don't call Wendy.
I know. I'm just
Wendy
kidding.
said, you know, the lady that was posting stuff, that's posting her picture and stuff like that.
Oh,
Remember she
that
said
lady.
earlier?
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I know what you mean. I know what
Yeah,
you mean.
she said that lady that was a godly person, and then she's posting with, you know, everything minimized.
Wow.
So Wendy said the answer is don't get no counsel from her at all.
Right, because you don't know what's going on at the house. She could be just faking it.
Don't know what's going on at all. Okay, so Kimberly Lewis, if you are there, you got to type in this box, me, if you're there. Wendy said, thank you. Wendy, go ahead. And Wendy, if you know Dr. Velma, I'll give you the information. So Kimberly,
Yeah.
if you are there, say me. If not, it goes to the next person. Kimberly, are you there? Say me. I'm gonna give her just a couple of seconds, because some people could just be watching and not on.
Me?
No. So I don't see her there saying me. So Pamela, if you there, say me. Pamela, are you there? Uh-oh. Let's see. Say me if you're there.
One twice.
I don't see it. Wait, somebody said me. Okay, Pamela is there. She said me. So she get the other
Oh,
box.
awesome.
Yep. So Pamela, do Pamela know you? Dr.
Yeah,
Velma?
me? Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Pamela gets that, so you know where she is. Do you
Yep.
know Wendy's? Do you know Wendy's email? You know Wendy Arced?
No, I don't, but I'm gonna get to know Wendy.
Yeah, Wendy is out there. So Wendy, she was our most participant. She was our most question asked, everything. So that is the number one. She was our number
Hold
one.
on, I got two things on. Hold on. Sorry.
Congratulations to you, Pamela Nance Johnson. You were our second winner. Whitney Arced, thank you for being our big winner. You never know what's going to happen at these nights when Dr. Velma is here. You guys,
I appreciate it.
thank you so much for being here. You guys tell everybody about the book and learn which fish to catch. Don't go catching fishes, but definitely
The
when they're in your
goldfish
face.
is the gold. The goldfish
Goldfish
is the gold.
is the gold. Goldfish is the gold. Thank
Mhm.
you all for being here. You guys have been great. Dr.
Thank you,
Velma,
guys.
I cannot
Thank
wait.
you, Queenie.
Do tell them where they can reach you, and also tell us again about that next book.
Oh, the next one?
Yeah,
The next
so
is
they can
called,
be ready. Get them
the next is
pre-orders in.
called The Wives Who Tore Down the Wives Who Tear Down the House. And it's based on Proverbs 14:1, which says the wise woman builds and the foolish woman tears it down. So it kind of takes the story from the male perspective. There are men who make some of the same mistakes we've been talking to the women about. They look at conditions, they look on the outside and don't really scrutinize the women very well. So they end up with the wrong women. So that's
Wow.
coming, Lord willing, in the fall.
I can't
Just
wait.
stay in touch with me. Just feel free to connect with me on Facebook. I'm on Twitter at Dr. Velma Bagby _author. I'm on Facebook as Dr. Velma Bagby. And then my website is Dr. Velma. I can put it in the chat.
Yeah,
if
put
you
it in
want.
there. Put it in there.
drvelma.com. So you can always connect with me there, especially for my newsletters, because I'm going to be having lots of giveaways this month. So stay tuned to that.
Stay tuned, guys.
But thank you all for
Okay.
just hanging out with me.
You are so welcome. We know we had a great time. Queenie, it was certainly good to see you, see your face. You're doing well. And Rose, same with all of you guys who were able to show your faces. This has been great. Dr. Velma always bringing out some thought-provoking things. Thank you so much for doing this and doing what God wants you to do and bringing out these wonderful scriptural novels, if you say, or novella, whatever people want to call it. And what do you call it? Do you call it a novella, fiction, nonfiction?
No, it's Christian fiction, contemporary. The workbook is going to be placed under nonfiction because I go into a lot of scriptures based on what Grayson gave his daughter. But I like Christian fiction because of the fact that Jesus was a great storyteller. He was a master at it. And so I love giving in the same way, taking common things that we're familiar with, but adding deep spiritual meaning underneath. So I hope that's what the story does.
Yes, it does. It does. And this is the workbook, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here's the workbook. Yeah, I really like that. You guys, you're getting a lot of hearts down there. Folks are throwing them hearts up for you.
Oh, so sweet.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. And to everyone, thank you, Dr. Velma. Thank you all you guys who showed up.
Thank you, ladies. Yeah,
Queenie,
Kia, Ro, and
son,
Queenie.
love you unto life. And also, Ro, all of you guys. Thank you, Dr. Velma. Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
everybody.
Thank you for coming tonight. And I know you have a lot of shows that you're going to be up, and let us know where you are.
Okay.
Thank you so much. We are grabbing hold to you.
Thank you. I appreciate your support.
You're welcome. Good night, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you, Queen.
Good night.
Thank you to Kia and Ro, and also Shandia.
Thank you, my dear.
Shandia.
Thank
you so
you,
much.
Takia, everybody. Have a good night.
All right. Good night, everybody. Good night, y'all. Thank you so much. I'm gonna talk to the folks a little bit here. Okay. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for watching. Also, tomorrow we have our shout out, scout out. That's when we bring up an author on Instagram only for 2 minutes or less. And they tell us about their book. This is our next author that's coming up. She's also going to be a spotlight author, Know You by Heart. And it is by USA Today bestselling author Tiff Marcello. So we look forward to that. And she will be out on May 3rd is when she'll talk to us, the 1 hour show. But on tomorrow, if you're on Instagram, Takia, any one of you guys, she will also be live just for a few moments tomorrow on my channel. Look for ESP Presents on Instagram. So good night, you all. Thank you for being here. And you just drop yourself down. Ro can drop herself. Thank you guys for being here. Good night, good night, good night, good night to you guys. Thank you for every share. Thank you for being here. Thank you for hanging out with us. I know it's a lot I revealed, a lot as a teenager. And so thank you guys so much for listening in. Congratulations to those winners, Pam and also Wendy Arced, for coming in and racking up. So I'll get in contact with you and we'll go from there. Good night, guys.